Hello everyone, welcome back to another trophy log update and new and improved Q&A video. So as we always do in these monthly videos, I'm going to talk through all the different trophies I earned, which is basically all the games that I was playing, kind of a journal of everything that I've been working on and enjoying in the last month. And starting this month, in between each game, I'm also going to inject one Q&A question, so you can get a little bit better sense of my taste or my habits or whatever it is that you want to ask about. So we had a really good turnout, a lot of good questions from the previous episode. So I've got a document with all of the questions in there. Like I said, I'll inject one between each game. We got more questions than I have like space in this video to answer. And so if your question did not get answered in this video, please go ahead and be patient and wait for the next month's video, because I will continue this on and I'll keep a running list of all of the questions that people ask and make sure that I get to all of them in due time. Plus, if you want to ask any additional questions, if you're curious, there's anything you want to know, you can always in the comments of this video leave me a question and I will add it to that doc and answer it in a future video. So with that, let's just go ahead and jump right into the first game I played in May. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And here you can see on May the 9th, I unlocked the Platinum Trophy, and I had an absolute blast with this game. I think that this is one of the most fresh, original, inspired, turn-based games, honestly, ever. It's so rare. It's such a great feeling when this happens, but you know, sometimes you're kind of eyeing a game and you think it's going to be good. Like, I've been following Expedition 33 since I first heard about it last year sometime. And every time I saw footage of it, I was like, I'm going to like this game. Like, this is going to be a game for me. But I thought I was going to have to sell it to other people, right? I thought I was going to have to, like, it'd be like a solid 8 out of 10, and I'd have to convince people it's worth their time. But it would just kind of turn into one of these hidden amidst the library of the PS5 games that people just don't really play. But very much to my surprise and delight, Clair Obscur has really found its audience. It's hit it big time. Every streamer has been playing it. It's all over the news. It's selling phenomenally well for a first game from a relatively small studio. So I'm so happy to see it. I think as of the time of this video, I think Expedition 33 has sold like 3.5 million copies or something. I saw they put out a tweet that said, you know, we sold 3.3 million, which I thought was cheeky and kind of fun. So in terms of the actual trophies, I mean, a lot of them you're going to get just by playing through the story. And then there's a lot at the end that are tied to optional objectives or kind of hidden super bosses. So you'll get 75% of everything just by naturally working your way through the course of the game. And then when you get to the final act of the game, if you spend some time running around, you know, kind of leveling up, you know, gaining new pictos, new skills, you can get pretty powerful, and you shouldn't have too much trouble taking on some of the like big bad bosses. I know that there are some like strategies to essentially one-shot everything in the game, and even though those have been nerfed, I hear that they're still like phenomenally powerful. Even without those, you can get some crazy synergies without looking up specific builds. I mean, the specific builds are not even that dramatic or complicated. It really just amounts to kind of equipping every single damage up modifier you can all at one time. But I did a lot of the game using like a really fun burn build where I would stack just a ridiculous amount of burn onto an enemy. I would end up equipping my characters with pictos. Pictos are like the ability modifiers in the game, where at the start of every match, my characters would die and then revive themselves. And every time my characters died, it would apply stacks of burn to the enemy. So by the time I was using my first attack with my first character, the enemy was already had like dozens of stacks of burn, and I had moves that scaled in damage based on the level of burn and applied more burn. And so that plus the tick damage just made it so I felt like superhuman, just so strong, so powerful. And then on top of that, you know, I had such a great time learning the combat system, learning all these parries and animations. It really is my type of like reactive, almost rhythm gamey sort of combat where you need to kind of like get into the groove of the enemy animations. A lot of times I mean, certainly some enemies I would read their animations, and that as the game went on, I was able to increasingly understand and digest their animations faster, in some cases even the first time I saw them. But a lot of times for some of the enemies I had to fight a lot, it was less about watching the animations and it was more about getting into the rhythm of it, right? Like I would learn, oh, okay, this 5-hit attack is parry, 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 parry. And then I would just remember that ba, 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 ba as my like rhythm solution to the problem, which, so good. I would say right now, this is right up there with Blueprints, tied as my game of the year contender. I can't imagine another game is going to come in and dethrone it, but then again, I wouldn't have imagined that this game was as good as it was. So yeah, great game, really fun platinum experience. Basically nothing is missable, so you can pretty relaxed play through the game, enjoy it, which is nice in an RPG like this. You don't have to do any second playthroughs or anything. So let's answer our first question here. And the first one up is from BM4N04. Thank you for the question. Says, oh, very fitting. As a fellow rhythm game enthusiast, I'm curious which game started your love of the genre. Was it something like Dance Dance Revolution, or was it something more niche? So I think the very first rhythm game that I ever played and like truly got into was Dance Dance Revolution. I remember I went over to a friend's house. I was in probably 5th grade, 4th grade, somewhere around there. No, it had to have been later than 5th grade because I didn't meet this friend until 6th grade. So it was probably 6th grade. I went over to a friend's house, and his sister, who's a few years older than us, she would have been in like 9th grade at the time. She had a PS2 with DDR Max and the soft pad. And I played it over there, instantly fell in love, went home, told my parents, like, I need to get a copy of this game ASAP. And then I bought that and ended up getting Max 2, Extreme, Extreme 2, Supernova, Supernova 2, all the DDRs on PS2. I even went back and bought Konamics on PS1. Played those and loved those to death. So that was really my first introduction to like loving rhythm games. And then I played some other rhythm games in like the following years in the PS2's life cycle, like Amplitude and Frequency. Those were games that I really enjoyed and got a lot of like good time with. But then, of course, like many of us, Guitar Hero was the one that like truly pulled me in. From day one, I was in on Guitar Hero, and especially day one on Rock Band drums, I was all in. And that was Guitar Hero into Rock Band was really my era of like score chasing, precision, trying to get really good. Up until then, I had just sort of focused on, you know, generally improving but having fun. But that was when I switched over to more like a rhythm gamer's focus on improving their ability. So yeah, great question, and great to meet another rhythm game enthusiast. Thank you so much. And yeah, hopefully I can get some good rhythm game platinums for you here in the near future. All right, so our next game is Airy and the Secret of Seasons. This is a game that was on my backlog because I had streamed it somewhere back in 2022, I think, 2021, somewhere in there. And this is kind of a Zelda-like. I would say it's Zelda is probably the closest comparison. It's kind of a 3D action-adventure platformer. You gain new abilities that let you navigate dungeons and stuff like that. So in the Zelda vein. So I had actually never finished this game before. Like I said, I just played it for probably a 3-hour stream several years ago. And in order to finish it, I had to go through, kind of do multiple playthroughs. One, play through it, enjoy the story. You know, this is like a standard 7 out of 10 kind of game, right? Like, it's not going to blow your mind, but you can tell it's made by a small team. There's a lot of heart. There's some jank that you forgive. It's a type of game that certainly has room for improvement, but I'm glad that they were able to produce it on a relatively small team and have a game that's a relatively large scale. And so I did that first playthrough, and that's the one where I kind of did all the side quests and stuff like that. And then I had to do a second playthrough for... where is that trophy? There's a couple of trophies. So the first playthrough I did without dying, which is really easy because you can kind of save anywhere. And so you can just make save checkpoints. If you die, you reload a checkpoint. It's not that big of a deal. But there's one trophy here. Where is it? I thought it was a gold, but maybe it's a... Well, let's just do the date that I earned them. We'll find it that way. It's this one right here. Finish the game without completing any side quests and finish the game in less than 5 hours. So these two trophies, meaning you have to do a second playthrough and you have to do a speed run, and you also need to do a playthrough where you don't do any side quests. Obviously, that pairs perfectly with the speed run, so they go hand in hand. It was actually, this side quest one was a little nerve-wracking because as part of the main quest, there's one point where the story branches into a couple of optional side quests, or what look like side quests that then come back together into the main quest. And in the game, they're like labeled with the iconography of side quests and stuff like that. So it feels like you're doing a side quest, but I trusted the guide and it ended up working out. And then the speedrun was a lot of fun because it's a 5-hour speedrun. I think I did it in 3 hours. So it's a very forgiving speedrun. It's really just kind of like a fun memory test. I played through it again and it felt kind of nice. It was kind of empowering to do a second playthrough of this game, not have to look up a bunch of speedrun strategies, just simply do a run where I'm pulling from my memory banks and sort of speed mainlining it through and see what the results of that are. And obviously I came in way under the time. It's funny, you play a game like this, it takes you 15 hours to beat it. And then if you just ignore side stuff and you kind of run from objective to objective, you can get it done in 3 hours. It shows how much of our playtime in a game like this is really built out of our poking around, discovery, just kind of learning what to do in one of these games. So that is Area and the Secret of Seasons. Relatively uncommon platinum. I mean, not too crazy, but 10% is pretty low for a game that is pretty easy to get. I guess it's probably not a lot of people care about it, and you have to do the multiple playthroughs, which not a lot of people want to do. So, all right, let's go to our next question here. Our next one is from Smitty1405. Appreciate the question. They say they got 2 platinums in April. Congrats, Darksiders and Enslaved. I also just got Enslaved. It's a great game. Playing on the PS3 was a nice blast from the past, but syncing trophies is so slow. Pause on that and say, that is so true. It takes forever. Sometimes I accidentally click the trophy menu and you can't easily back out of it on PS3. Oh, and you're just trapped there for 5 minutes waiting for it to sync. They also played Forspoken in April. My question is, how do you buy most of your games? New or secondhand? Do you go to a game store or do you buy online? For that, I would say it's a pretty even split of where I get my stuff. So, I mean, the majority of games at this point that I buy are relatively new releases, PS4, PS5 games. And for those, I usually go to Amazon. Occasionally, I'll pre-order something from somewhere else, but it's almost always Amazon for my new stuff, or it's coming from one of these limited print companies, like a Limited Run Games or Super Rare or something like that. Because a lot of those companies focus on signing deals with indie developers, and indies are where I generally prefer to play. I would say a good 80% of the games that I play end up being indie in some capacity. So that's where I usually get my new stuff. As for my older stuff, I've slowed down a lot on collecting older stuff. I still do collect, but I have a lot of what I want, and the prices have gotten very high, so it just sort of naturally pulls you back in terms of what you purchase. But when I do go out and buy something, it comes from a whole bunch of different places. I mean, obviously eBay, I'll generally try to snipe an auction and get a good deal on something I've been looking for on eBay. I will occasionally, I do a fair number of garage sale and thrift store trips, and every now and again I'll stumble across something I want at one of those, or at least something that I could trade for something I want. And then I also get some stuff, from fellow collectors, friends of mine on the Discord for Polykill or something like that, where someone is selling some stuff they don't want anymore and I can make a deal that way. So it could be almost anywhere that I buy my stuff, but thank you for the question. All right, next game, we have Another Crab's Treasure, and this is not the game itself, because I actually have played Another Crab's Treasure already, but this is, they added some new Year of the Crab DLC, so this was kind of going back and tidying up the 100%. Year of the Crab added a bunch of new modes, the biggest one being New Game Plus, but they also added a Boss Rush mode, and as part of New Game Plus, they've added some new abilities and upgrades and stuff like that. So thankfully, the trophies are very very in that regard, where a lot of games, especially Sony first party, they'll release after the fact a New Game Plus mode, and then they will add in a trophy that says beat the game on New Game Plus, which is like, you just don't want to play the game again at that point. If you're not in the mood, you don't want to do it. But what Another Crab's Treasure did is that just says start a new playthrough on New Game Plus. And actually, all these trophies, they're kind of pointing you in the direction of stuff that they added without forcing you to do everything. So they're saying like, hey, you can do New Game Plus now, go do that. Or hey, we added a boss rush mode, go complete one of any of the boss rushes. Or hey, you can upgrade yourself to higher levels in New Game Plus, just do one upgrade and that's it. Or hey, we added a museum, go look at the museum. So all that stuff just means that you spend a couple hours in like the first 2 or 3 areas of the game running around seeing some new stuff and pop all those trophies. I actually was very tempted to replay the game after doing these, because you have to load up your old save and you have to rebeat the final boss to unlock New Game Plus. And so I redid the final boss on my original save, and it just got me back in the spirit of that combat. This game has really good like dodge combat mixed with more shield focused combat, because obviously you're a hermit crab hiding in your shell in your house. So yeah, really fun. I might even still go back and replay it, but it was cool to revisit this, and now this one is back to a 100%. All right, new question. This one is from my good friend on YouTube, a YouTube channel you should all go check out, Louie, and he posts a whole bunch of great videos. He's just a phenomenally cool guy. But he also posts a lot of great trophy videos. So he just dropped his most common trophy video. Highly recommend that you check that out. But he asks me 2 Q&A submissions for the next or future video. 1, if you could only pick one game's soundtrack to be playing on loop throughout your everyday life, which game's OST would it be and why? Rusty and I are both big, I would say, music enthusiasts, like listen to a lot of game soundtracks in our free time. And if I had to pick just one soundtrack to listen to forever, I mean, there's a lot of great ones that I could pick, right? Maybe the Perfect Dark soundtrack. Maybe something a little more epic, like the Shadow of the Colossus soundtrack. Something more peaceful, like Dark Cloud. But I think, as stereotypical of an answer as it would be, I'm going to go with the Outer Wilds soundtrack. It's got a lot of good, soft, gentle, kind of like guitar, relaxing sort of campfire music that I think would do a lot for my mental health. Keep me calm, keep me relaxed, keep me happy. And then also it has that song that plays as you're getting towards the end of the loop, which in this case for me would be at the end of the day, which is like a free alarm. It's a free reminder you need to go to bed at the end of the day, when suddenly you're thinking to yourself, I'm just going to stay up another half an hour and fight this boss. And you hear, wah, wah, wah. Ah, so good. So definitely Outer Wilds. And Rusty has a second question here. I'll do both of these together. He says, what's the most, quote, I didn't think that would work, but it totally did game for you? Could be a game that mashes up different genres, or just a concept for a game that really wowed you, even though on paper it sounded like it wouldn't. I generally go into most games thinking that I'm going to have a good time. So there's not too many situations where I'm like pessimistic as I go to start a game. I'm usually pretty open. But I will say recently, this was something I played to satisfy a square for my podcast's yearly bingo challenge, where you beat games that meet certain conditions and try to earn a bingo. One of that was to play through the season of a simulation sports game. And I'm not a sports follower. I'm not a sports game player, anything like that. More power to you if you enjoy those things. I know it's very common to enjoy them, and I'm glad people do. It's just never been something that really hooked me. But I decided to, as part of that, go back and revisit a game I did like when I was a kid, even though I probably wouldn't have thought I liked it now. And that's Sports Talk Baseball on the Sega Genesis, which is just kind of like a classic old school top-down simulation baseball game. And man, it was so good. It was so much fun. I mean, partially it was nostalgic to revisit it, but also I just think that game plays well, right? Like the actual systems, I totally understand the appeal of some of these, especially baseball games, because the systems just worked well, satisfying to knock out game after game after game, even though I was totally getting my ass handed to me. I was getting bodied, but all the same, it was really fun. So I'd say Sports Talk Baseball. And Rusty, thank you for the questions. Next up here we have a group of games. So I'm actually hopping over to TrueTrophies from PlayStation Profile because I joined their monthly Hangman challenge. So the way that this works is the site does challenges every so often, and this one that they did recently was Hangman, where whenever you unlock a trophy, the first letter of that trophy goes into your Hangman as a guess, and you either, work towards getting the answer, or it gives you a piece of the Hangman. And so this was my first Hangman. I actually did 2, but I failed the second one. And it was Vault Dweller from Fallout. And so I earned a bunch of the trophies playing through Area and the Secret of Seasons. And a couple of those ones from Another Crab's Treasure. But we also earned several trophies from a few other games down here. One is from Origami, which is a stealth game. This is kind of like a Tenchu style stealth game, really focused on hiding in the shadows and empowering your abilities from the shadows. I had to just do a specific type of kill that I had never done in that. Then I popped in and installed Uncharted 4, and I did just 2 trophies, one for getting combo takedowns, one for a specific series of kills in a certain order. And then I installed Outer Worlds, and I sold $10,000 worth of items to vendors in that game because I needed a W, an R, and an E, and a U trophy as part of my guess. So that was actually really fun to force me to go back into my older games and just pop specific targeted trophies, be kind of surgical about it, and do a Hangman. So they do challenges like this a lot. There's one that they do called Warboats that I'm really hoping they bring back soon, because I'll definitely do that. But a fun, different way, rather than going and cleaning up an entire list, going back in to just try to specifically get one trophy. And so I did all of those together and earned myself a bingo. All right, another question here. This one comes from a good friend of mine, Gaming in the Wild, John, who has, first off, if you are into indie games, has a phenomenal YouTube channel. I'll also put a link to that in the show notes. And also has one of the best gaming podcasts out there. I say this as someone who has 2 gaming podcasts of his own. I think he's well above it. He's phenomenal. It's a must listen every time he releases an episode. And he's just a generally very chill, cool guy. So everyone go check out John, Gaming in the Wild. He says, what's the most punishing trophy you ever went for? And that's tricky. This is where my temperament comes into play. I'm not quick to anger or frustration. And so I think a lot of times when people think back on a question like this, they're like, well, what trophy pissed me off? And not that many did. I will say one that I thought was really freaking hard and took me a long time to go for, and failure was very common and sometimes very punishing, it's actually 2 trophies. One's called King, and one is called, I forget what the name of the other one is. I can't recall, but King and something else from the game Race the Sun, which is an indie sort of I don't even know what you would call it. It's behind the back. You're racing forward. You're needing to stay out of the shadows and in the light, and you're trying to avoid obstacles. And there were 2 trophies that pair together, one for getting 6 perfect regions and the other for getting 5 million points in a single run. And both of those, you'll probably have 6 perfect regions if you get the 5 million points, because you get extra points for a perfect region. That's why I put them together. But those 2 took me so many tries on and off for months. I think actually years. I would, have the Vita on the nightstand because I played the Vita version. I'd pick it up, try a few runs, fail, come back a couple of days later, try it, wait a few months, come back for several days, put some effort into it, try it, and fail it. And the one time I finally got it, I was white knuckling, I was sweating, I was so nervous that I was going to throw the run, but we were able to successfully get it. And it was made harder by the fact that it was the Vita version, which runs at a lower frame rate and has some frame drops, so it's harder to respond, especially because it's a very fast-moving game. And then it's also, they don't even seem that hard if you just look at the percentages, because in the PS4 version, there's a glitch that lets you unlock them without even having to meet the criteria. And the game has cross save. So people got the game for free on PS Plus on the PS4 version. They'd glitch to get the trophies, and then they would just cross save to the Vita version and pop them there. So it looks like way more people have popped the trophies than should, because they're way harder than the 20% that they actually sit at. But John, thank you for the question. Appreciate it. Next game I played through, Hidden Agenda. So this is one that I think not a lot of people have actually played. Hidden Agenda is one of the PlayLink titles, which was a relatively short-lived initiative from Sony, where they were releasing games that integrated with smartphone applications, PlayLink applications. And so the way Hidden Agenda works is that it is like a story-based, QTE-focused adventure narrative type game. It's made by Supermassive, so if you think, The Quarry, Until Dawn, stuff like that, it's very much in that vein. But rather than responding on the controller, you pull up a smartphone app, and you're making decisions by tapping on the smartphone, or you're responding to QTEs on your smartphone that moves a cursor on the TV. So novel and, sure, probably a little bit unnecessary, but it's kind of quirky. It's enjoyable. It's not the type of game that's going to blow your mind, but it's fun to see the technology at play. I actually just booted this game up specifically to get 1 or 2 trophies from Hangman. And then I was like, well, as long as I'm here, I'm just going to clean up all of the game, because it just requires a couple of playthroughs. And I was grateful that the app still worked on my phone, because we're at the point where a lot of newer phones don't support the application because it's like out of security compliance now. So I had my phone, which is like 5 years old. I have a Galaxy S20. And then I had an old iPad, and those together I was able to both get the app and play it, and it worked. And it actually works really slick. You just need to connect to the Wi-Fi that your PS5 is connected to, and it just shows right up. It's really cool. But in terms of actually earning the trophies, you're just mostly going to have to play through it a handful of times with some strategic cloud saves, because you're sort of having to see every possible outcome. So, you need to have, there's trophies for characters to live, trophies for characters to die, trophies to, sort of solve the greater mystery, stories to leave the greater mystery unsolved. And then there's trophies about the other mechanics in the game, like the Hidden Agenda mechanic, which that's the whole game is designed to be a party game. It's designed for multiple people to play on their phones, and everyone's supposed to kind of vote on the decisions. And then as a wrinkle to that, randomly on certain people's phones, it'll show a hidden agenda, which is a certain criteria that you need to meet that you don't tell anybody else about, but you need to try to steer the group towards that thing. So maybe they'll pop up and say this character needs to die, and so you then try to vote or convince the group to make decisions that are maybe riskier in hopes that you can get that character killed so that you meet your hidden agenda. And it tracks points for all this stuff, and then at the end of the game, which is only a couple hours long, it shows everybody's score and kind of who won. So fun idea. Like I said, it's made by Supermassive, so it has a lot of the... It feels much more like one of the Dark Pictures Anthologies games. It's kind of that level of production value. But it's really cool. It's worth playing through for sure. Let's answer another question here. This one's from Xenofan85. Thank you for the question. It says, great video. Really inspired me in the last months to go back and clean up older games. My question would be, how do you keep a good balance between getting trophies and enjoying games? I've had my profile for more than 15 years, so I'm only on 25.14% completion, but since I've tried and played so many games in the past, getting the percentage up is really slow. I don't want to start a new profile since the history is important to me, but starting new games is hard since my percentage will go down again. Keep up the great videos. Well, Xenofan, first off, thank you for the question. I would flip that a little bit, and I would say that you have a good problem on your hands. The larger the backlog to go clean up, the better, I say. I mean, that's just a larger pool of great games that you enjoy that you can go back and visit. If I'm being perfectly honest, I enjoy hunting trophies, and I like to improve my completion percentage, but in terms of playing a new game for me, it's an absolute non-factor. I will play anything I want to play. I'll put anything in my profile. I don't care if there's unobtainable trophies. I don't care if it's ridiculously hard to earn. I don't care if it's ridiculously easy to earn. First and foremost, I just play the games that I want to play, and I'm happy to put anything on there. And when I play a game, if I'm in the mood for the trophies, I go for the trophies. If I'm not, I don't. The way I always see it is that, if I want to clean up the trophies someday down the line, those trophies being on my profile unearned are a very compelling reason for me to revisit a game I liked. So there's several games where there's like a new game plus trophy. Final Fantasy 16, a game I really liked. I played through that, and I could have, as soon as I beat it, done the new game plus trophy and gotten the platinum. But I said, I don't want to burn myself out on this game. I don't want to not enjoy it for the sake of the trophies. I'll just play it, and I'll leave it on my profile. And, someday, 5 years from now, I'll be in the mood to replay 16, and I'll go play it. Or, maybe my friend Matt Quill will assign me the game as kind of my backlog homework. Homework said very lovingly, we have fun doing this. And I'll do it that way. I'm actually envious of your 25% because I'm approaching 70% at this point, and I'm actually starting to get worried that my backlog is running out in terms of games I've already played. I really like cleaning up games on my backlog, and I'm getting to the point where there's only I think less than 200 left for me to play, and some of those I just know that I will not ever want to do or can't do. And so the pool for me to choose from is relatively small. So I would say one thing that really helps, you can try this for yourself and see if it works, is I almost always have one game that I'm playing and one backlog game that I'm revisiting to hunt trophies in, and I kind of keep those as two separate things. And if you do that, your completion percentage will naturally go up, even if slowly, and you'll still be able to play all the new stuff that you want to play. So hopefully that helps. Enjoy, and let me know how the progress is in cleaning up your backlog. I'd love to know. All right. Next game I played through this month was The Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human. This is another backlog game for me, speaking of backlogs, and this is a game I really like. This is a game from, the developer's name is YCJY. I think they also go as Stage Clear or Final Stage, something like that. But this is the same development studio that did the recent road trip roguelike. I think it's called Keep Driving, where it's just a roguelike where you're on a cross-country road trip. This is one of their earlier games. They also did Post Void, which is kind of a boomer shooter. But Aquatic Adventure of the Last Human is a Metroid style, so gated exploration, Shadow of the Colossus alike, which sounds very compelling, and it's a great game. It takes place underwater, so you control a submarine, and you're kind of going from area to area, unlocking new abilities and stuff like that, and fighting these giant sea creature bosses. So you'll fight giant manta rays with lasers on them, or huge squids, stuff like that. And you have your little harpoon gun, and later you get some missile attacks and stuff like that. And it's just you trying to defeat these bosses to unlock new abilities, and then you'll travel from that boss to the next boss, maybe finding some upgrades to health or repairability along the way, and fight the next boss. I say it's like Shadow of the Colossus because obviously all Metroid games have bosses. It's like Shadow of the Colossus because there's actually very little friction and almost no enemies, if any enemies, in between the bosses. The travel from one boss to the next is really more about just kind of like the experience of swimming through the ocean. So it's one of the only games I've played that captures that feeling of venturing off, doing your thing, then fighting a boss, then venturing to the next place as an opportunity to stop and reflect and play the next boss, stuff like that. I've always really liked this game, and I've always been looking forward to go back and play it, so I was pumped when my friend assigned this one to me, when Matt Quo did. And as you can see, it's a relatively uncommon platinum. It's an ultra rare. It's a 4.26%. And that's really down to a couple of trophies, one of which is complete the boss rush mode. So this is every boss in the game back to back to back, which is tough, but the game is relatively generous. They give you one upgrade in between every boss fight that you can choose from a number of upgrades. And you have 5 lives. So you don't have to do all of them in one life, which would be ridiculously hard. You just have to, there's like 12 bosses in the game or something, so it's kind of like you have to beat 2 bosses without dying. And if you can do that enough times, you'll win. I mean, it is tough because the final boss has a lot of instant kill moves, and so when you're at your sweatiest, that's when you need to accomplish that. But it only took me 2 or 3 tries to get the boss rush mode, so it's obviously very doable. And then the Possimpable, which is a great name for a trophy. Complete the game without any upgrade crates. That's actually one of the trickier ones, but thankfully you can save in between every boss and area, so you can make slow progress on it. It just kind of means you're using your little pea shooter the entire time, which some bosses will take a ridiculously long time. A few of them you have to farm for 25 minutes and hope you don't mess up because your health is extremely low. but with patience and persistence, I was able to get it relatively quickly. And then complete hardcore mode, which is actually one of the easier of the difficult trophies. Hardcore mode is basically just the game has an ability where when you take damage, you'll automatically restore your health after a certain period of time. You know, think like the Halo shield, or I guess any modern shooter. It disables that, so your health bar is just your health bar. But you can use any upgrade. You can kind of like power yourself up however you want to. So again, just like the upgrade-less run, it's just a matter of patience. And the game doesn't take very long to go through once you know where to go and what to do. So I was able to get all these within the matter of like 3 days, which felt really good. Really actually quite happy to have this on my profile because not a lot of people appreciate this game. I mean, if you look, only 516 people own the game and only 22 people have the platinum. Way too low. More people should check this game out. It's really fun. One of my faves that I've played this month for sure. All right, let's do another question. Next one here comes from Hobo Soap DS, a DS fan, Nintendo DS fan. Let's go. Asks, are there any, quote, retro games you'd like to see added to the Classics catalog or the PSN store in general with trophy support? Ooh, that's a good question. Retro games I'd like to see on the PSN store or Classics catalog. You know, there's some games that I would love to revisit and it'd be nice to have a trophy incentive. There's a lot of games I could pick for this. You know, ones that I grew up with and really enjoy, but I'll try to stick to just one answer. Well, it's going to be 3 games, which is kind of cheating. I'll say the Shadow Hearts games. If you've never played them, PlayStation 2 trilogy of turn-based RPGs with this really interesting mechanic called I think the Ring of Judgment or something like that, where it's sort of Clair Obscur, where it's timed button presses in order to maximize your damage in the turn-based battles. Has a very dark aesthetic, especially the first game. You know, you're like in villages of cannibals and there's a lot of like demons and things like that. The games get sillier as they go on, but all of them are really good. I like all 3 of them, and I'd love to replay those with trophy support. You know, really, really good excuse to go replay an RPG that I really like. So thanks for the question. And yeah. All right, next game I played through. This is a VR game. It's called The American Dream. I played this one back in 2018 originally, and then now just went back and cleaned it up. This is a relatively straightforward, just kind of like rail shooter in VR. This is the PSVR 1 version. I don't even know if there is a PSVR 2 version. And so you're kind of in this cart, and you're going from set piece to set piece to set piece, and you're just shooting different guns at different things while they tell you kind of a jokey story. It's kind of in the vein of like the Rick and Morty games or Accounting Plus. Not in terms of the sense of humor, but in terms of the level of interactivity where like you're standing there, they tell you some jokes, and then you do some like shooting gallery, target practice type stuff while they tell you jokes, and then you move to the next area. The big like shtick in this game, the big hook, is that it is a satire of American gun culture. And so it's developed by an Australian team parodying Americans, the idea being that every single activity in a human or in an American's life is done with guns. And so, you know, it plays through kind of your entire life and all of the major milestone events of your life with guns mixed in. So as a baby, you know, instead of the baby crying to let you know that it's hungry, it'll shoot a pistol in the air to say, hey, I'm hungry. And then in order to like cut up the baby food, you're shooting it out of midair, and then you're feeding it by like scooping it onto the edge of the barrel and feeding the baby that way. You do your job by firing a gun. You go to prom using your a firearm, all that stuff. So, I mean, it's funny, it's novel, it's definitely like several hours long, and so by the end, you're probably like, I get the joke, but I wouldn't say it's bad. It's kind of a buggy game. It's fine. It's not a bad one to play through if you want, you know, a little bit of a crooked smile here or there, but it's nothing too crazy. And the trophies weren't too bad either. There's one trophy for doing something unique in every chapter, so I just went back and got all those. And then there's one for getting the true ending, and that's just a decision at the end of the game. And then there's these hidden stars, which are just kind of like the collectibles hidden throughout the game. Most of them are pretty easy to find. I had already unlocked 3/4 of them on my first playthrough back in the day, but easy to go back and clean up. So this is just one on my backlog that I went and earned all the trophies for. All right, let's move on to our next question. This one is from David Idamiani? Sorry if I mispronounced that. David E. Damian I 4702 says, "Hi, love the content. Thank you. I love you. My question is, what is a game franchise you'd like to plat all of, or your favorite franchise? Currently, I'm playing and 100%ing all of the Assassin's Creed and Resident Evil games, but my favorite franchise that I've completed is God of War." Let me take a drink of my coffee here while we get you an answer. My favorite franchise, if you could call it a series, it's probably the Team Eco games, Eco Shadow of the Colossus Last Guardian, of which I have all of them other than the PS3 Shadow of the Colossus. So I'd love to clean up the PS3 Shadow of the Colossus to have that entire set. But I've already kind of done that, and it's pretty small. So if I was going to pick a bigger series that I'd want everything in, I think for sure it would be Final Fantasy. Now that the pixel remasters are there, you can trophy hunt every single Final Fantasy game, I think. And I'd love to go back and earn a lot of those. I have a few of them, but not many. I have played all the Final Fantasy games in the past. I've beaten every mainline Final Fantasy except for 11 because I never played 11. But I'd love to go back and do all the pixel remasters and then do, obviously 7, 8, 9, 10. Just have one platinum for each Final Fantasy game represented on my profile. Bonus points if I can go get some of the side games too. Like the Chocobo Dungeon and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say for sure Final Fantasy. There's just so many great games. It would be so fun to revisit, and some fun trophy lists in there too. So I'll probably chip away at that at some point when I'm feeling like I have a little more time for RPGs. I'd also love to see some Dragon Quest games available on PlayStation Network. I mean, some of them are, but not many. All right, next game that I went and cleaned up, we have Bubsy the Woolies Strike Back. This is just a goofy 2D platformer. I mean, most people know Bubsy's reputation. I'm a Bubsy defender. I've only played 2 Bubsy games. The first one and this one, I think they're both actually pretty decent. And this is just a very straightforward 2D platformer. All you need to do, beat all the bosses and then meet certain conditions in every level, which is find all the collectibles, which is pretty easy to do if you are just exploring. Then you need to beat every level without dying, which is really easy if you're just mainlining the level. And you need to unlock the Wool Vault at the end of each level, which is basically finding 5 hidden keys, which unlocks the vault at the end. So, not bad at all. This is just a game that I had played a little bit of and needed to go back to. I did most of this on stream on my Twitch page last week, actually, as of the time of recording this. So, every now and again I do trophy hunt over on Twitch. I do want to stream on YouTube as well. If you want to come hang out for some YouTube streams, let me know. And maybe I'll do some trophy hunting YouTube streams in the future. But yeah, this is pretty straightforward. It's got a lot of very rare and rare trophies because I think people just don't want to play this game. But no platinum or anything, just a solid 100%. Took me 3-4 hours to go do. Very, very quick. All right. Next question before we move to the next game here is from Brett Cole 9986. Hello, Brett. Says, what's my favorite game of all time? Oof. Asking the big questions. For a long time, I would have said that my favorite game is Chrono Trigger. That was my go-to answer for most of my life after I had played it. Chrono Trigger followed closely by a Final Fantasy. And it's still one of my all-time favorite games. At this point, I would say that my favorite game I've ever played is Outer Wilds. I really love Outer Wilds. Very few games have connected with me in the way Outer Wilds had. It has such a good message, I think, in terms of how we live our lives and I don't know how to say it without spoiling things, but there's a lot to that story around the impact we leave on the world and a kind of contentment with our place in the world, and a lot about relationships with other people, all of which I think is just really striking. Plus, I love the puzzle box world. I love that it all kind of syncs together. I love the mystery of it all. Got a great soundtrack. Outer Wilds is just one of my all-time. Well, it is one of my favorite games because it is my favorite game. There you go. So yeah, I'd say my favorite game ever is Outer Wilds. Thank you for the question. All right, and then we're rounding it out with just 2 more quick trophies. I'm going to bundle these together. And these are 2 trophies that or 2 games where I only earned a single trophy on it, but I wanted to call them out. First up is a big one. That is Completionist Plus on Balatro. So for folks that have never played Balatro, Completionist Plus requires you to get a gold stake win on all 15 decks. To get a gold stake win, you need to earn the... you need to get a win on each of the stakes below that, and they're in increasing difficulty, of which there are 8 total stakes. So it's 8 times 15 wins that you need to achieve, which I shouldn't do the math. What is that? 120 wins? 120 total wins you have to get, but they're in increasing difficulty. Now, once you get to gold stake, it's very hard to guarantee a win, unless you're Balatro University or somebody crazy. So this one took me a long time. I've got about 170 hours into Balatro at this point. I'm still playing it, still having a great time. I've really never stopped playing Balatro, and yeah, it felt really good to pop Completionist Plus, because now I can focus on just getting the individual jokers in wins, which means I have more flexibility. You know, it's kind of like I chewed my veggies, and now I can like really indulge in the savory bits and in the dessert. So I'm getting closer to the Balatro Platinum. You know, it's definitely on the horizon. At this point, I'm confident I will get it at some point, whereas in the past I wasn't. This time for sure I know I will. And this was kind of a sweaty one, because when you do get it, it doesn't pop immediately. So I finished my last gold stake run, and I was like, "Where's my trophy?" But you just have to go do one more one more run on any difficulty. So you can just do a white stake run, and it's very quick, and then it pops after that for whatever reason. But yeah, you can see me here in the most recent achievers, and actually, funny enough, you can see my buddy Matt Kuo, who also did it like a day or 2 later. He and I are always talking Balatro in the DMs. And then the other game that I just started that I will mention, probably have more to talk about here in my June video, is Rogue Legacy 2. Rogue Legacy 2, just one that I was sitting there one day, I was like, what should I play? And my wife was like, well, Rogue Legacy is awesome. Play Rogue Legacy 2. I want to watch that. So I started it up, and yeah, dude, Rogue Legacy 2 is great. So this is just the trophy for beating the very first boss, very quick. This is the only trophy I have so far, but I will for sure go in and clean that one up at some point. So you know what, we'll do one more question on our way out here. Last question for this video is going to be from my buddy Never Before Seen 160. Never Before Seen, a great guy. Says, for the question, do you have a preference between RPG style Yakuza Like a Dragon or the traditional beat 'em up style of Yakuza? I prefer the turn-based style, actually. I like the beat 'em up style. I think that it's enjoyable, but I think that the turn-based style lends itself better to the sort of like quirky sense of humor that Like a Dragon has. You know, all the different classes and stuff let you just like lean into the goofy. All the different enemy types let you lean into the goofy a lot more. Plus, I generally just prefer turn-based battles in an RPG, so I usually like a turn-based RPG over an action RPG. But yeah, definitely prefer the turn-based style over the beat-em-up style. And Never Before Seen, thanks for the question. And that'll do it. That is everything I earned for the month of May. Now, granted, I'm recording this a day or 2 before the end of May, but that's just how it worked out. And I'll squeeze in any trophies I missed here in the June video. But yeah, let me know what you've worked on in May, what platinums you earned. If you have more questions that you want me to inject into a future video, like I said, please feel free to ask them. Anything you ask in the comments, I will add to the list, and we will get around to soon in a future video. Still have probably about half the questions I was able to answer this video, and we'll do the other half of them next video. So there might even be a little bit of space for some questions to fit into the next video. So please ask away. I'd love to know what you want to know. It could be about anything, trophy, gaming, me, whatever you want to know. I'll be happy to answer what I can. So appreciate you all watching, and until next time, peace.